Douche, not a douche.
Nils Cohen is a douche. Nils is a Cohen or Cohen?
Cowan, please.
Cowan, Nils Cowan. Welcome to the program. Absolutely. We're going to be joined hopefully by Adam Brown and Jason. I guess they might be stuck in traffic, but the hell with them. We don't care.
Before they get here, man, you can talk smack about them. What the hell kind of name is Nils and you don't have an English accent, man?
Oh, there they are.
Yeah, I apologize.
That's all right.
That's all right. Yeah. Good to see you guys. How are you?
My mother loves Swedish culture.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah. How you guys doing? Maybe you brought back the Sonics? Nils, let's start with you since you already sat down there.
Absolutely.
A couple things. You spent some time in Washington, D.C., a decade or so.
That's right.
Ted is from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, where'd you live?
I was in Adams Morgan, man.
Oh, nice. 18th Street. I grew up in PG County.
Adams Morgan was one of the places to go back in the day where you could always find cocaine. Nils, I didn't know if you knew that or not, but on the East Coast, that seemed to be the cocaine place to go.
I decided to just live there, you know.
Well, you didn't go to any of the downstairs bars then, I guess, because everybody was going a million miles an hour.
Heaven or hell. They used to have a bar there on 18th Street called Heaven, and then the basement was hell.
Yeah, DuPont
and
Circle.
The top was heaven.
Yeah.
DuPont Circle was
tattoos and leather downstairs.
It was scary.
Yeah.
Right? All right, do you smoke weed?
Yes.
Okay, you do smoke weed. And in the
all right,
the documentary is Evergreen: The Road to Legalization in
That's
Washington.
Correct.
I was disappointed because I thought it was about Barbara Streisand. I was so excited to see it. I'm like, weed? The hell is this?
You probably have an easier time selling it.
Were you
Unfortunately.
surprised by the voter response as far as this passing? I mean, initially when you're working on this, all the hurdles, all the obstacles, were you kind of a little bit leery about the whole idea of legalized weed?
Well, I wasn't leery about the idea of it, but I was very surprised by the voter turnout. That was, such a big margin.
More surprised than that, were you surprised about the people who are pro-marijuana, whether it's medical, whether it's just some of the rules that were on the books that have always fought for, in their own mind, maybe one day the weed. I got to be honest with you. I still cannot believe that weed is legal in my lifetime. I thought one day we'd get there, but
you got a black president, gay marriage, and legal weed.
Yeah, I mean,
and somebody go, what the hell happened?
What happened in 2
What happened to the America I'm used to?
Yeah, but are you surprised by that?
Yeah,
I mean, those people were kind of like fighting against basically, and they had their own reasons to do it. Obviously, the medical industry is going to take a hit from this. And for whatever reason, maybe some of the laws that were on the books as far as the questionable DUIs, and there was all kinds of things that were brought up that people had legitimate concerns about.
At first I was surprised about it, but as we followed the story and kept making the film, there's a lot of interesting questions that were brought up over, is this power to the people that's legalized, or is this the powers that be are taking over this revenue stream?
Well, you would think, just from the outside looking in, it seems like a little bit of both, but it seems like both seem to be aware of that dynamic, but both willing to kind of compromise. Like, right, the government gets their cut. And obviously, let's face it, in economic times, you kind of go good. Here's a source. And in this state, I do not believe we will let them down with their projections. And then the flip side, it's like, right, the state's kind of getting involved in something that you kind of like to keep on the down low. But then the flip side is, but even the cops saying, look, it's a low priority. You can smoke on the street. It said, who were you most surprised as far as finding support or non-support? Who were you most surprised kind of stood behind it and said, yeah, let's legalize this? And then subsequently, who were you most surprised said, like, no, we don't want this?
Definitely, some of the major religions. I was very surprised that they didn't come out against it. A lot of pastors were for this. And then on the other side, I'd have to say some of the people who have, advocated for medical marijuana since the very beginning, 20 years ago.
We're the ones who were fighting against it.
Yeah, exactly.
See, and that was the one thing that that I couldn't figure out. I was like, just get this passed. They'll work everything out in the end. If they had said, like, look, you need to have gay sex once, but then you can go and buy as much weed as you want, wherever you want. And I'd be like, well, I got to think about that one because I got a guy, but I mean, maybe if I can get it at the 7-Eleven.
One step ahead of him,
right, exactly. So,
that to me,
like, whatever the hurdle was.
Is it Adam? I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. And Adam and Jason joining us. Guys, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks for having us back.
Absolutely.
You're much more smiley this time around, I got to tell you.
It's always good to see you.
You guys are like the documentary doctors now, aren't you?
A little bit.
It's been a pleasure working with these guys.
You don't have to say that just because they're here.
Right. It's not right. Is there a cut of revenue, I guess, between the deal? Speaking of that,
table.
Are you guys still trying to work on a little money for Evergreen, the road to legalization in Washington?
Absolutely.
To pay for that? Do you want to plug the website?
I will let Adam Brown plug, please.
Yes,
absolutely.
Adam.
We need your help. We need money. Just like with Sonicsgate, this is a passion project. We're doing it all. Everyone's worked for free so far, and just our blood and sweat are in this. So go to evergreendocumentary.com. help us out on Indiegogo. We only have less than 3 weeks left to donate. We've got some sweet prizes up there, like, lunch with Rick Steves is one.
A bong.
I'd imagine that's a lot of lunch.
You can do
Lunch,
whatever you
quote
want.
unquote.
Yeah, lunch with Rick Steves. So check it out, Indiegogo.com/evergreendoc, or just our website.
And it's sad that the Sonics aren't here because it really could have helped the Evergreen story with the NBA, the basketball players.
Did you see the dispensary map? The whole area around where those stadiums are going to be is, all 100% legal, whereas most of the rest of Seattle, there's some kind of regulation where you can't open a new store.
They might be like, welcome to the quietest NBA crowd ever.
Was there anybody, Nils, that did not that you were surprised that did not just want to be filmed on camera and say that, because Rick's been a marijuana proponent for a number of years. My question to Rick has always been, all right, I watch your show all the time when you're traveling Europe. I find it fascinating. Half the time I don't even know where in the hell you are, but it looks like you're having a great time. How do you get weed in Europe? Like, how do you get weed in another country? Is it a cab driver? Like, what's your technique? But were there people who didn't want to talk to you? Were there people who you were surprised that
everyone wanted to talk? It's something about this issue and all the attention being focused on the Pacific Northwest and Seattle. Everyone wants a piece of that limelight, and we were part of the media that was covering this.
Do you think
drug dealers, gangsters?
What seemed to be the overriding sentiment? I mean, obviously you got the people that go like, "Man, it should just be legal because I like weed," and that's fine. You can say that about anything you like. But as far as the economics of it go, the people that still think it's a poison, going to kill you, and all that. I mean, as far as what seemed to be the commonality of the arguments on either side? Was
economics are driving everything, I think. People who were against it even 2-3 years ago. They look at the empty coffers in Olympia, and it's a revenue stream.
Fair enough.
Tastes good too.
Well, here's another aspect of it. Let's face it. One thing that we love about being in Seattle, and Seattleites love, is just leave us the hell alone. In other words, like, you kind of like the fact that maybe your mom calls or your brother, like, I got to get out there, man. But now the calls come in and they're like, bro, I am coming to Seattle. I will take your couch. Like, man, I haven't heard from this jerk in 20 years. Now he's going to stay in my frickin' house. How much of the tourism? I mean, you think about Amsterdam before this became legal. And we all could get weed anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
But ideally, if we were going to go to Europe, we were going to go to Amsterdam for one reason only, just to be able to walk into a cafe, get a hooker, have some mushroom tea, and then be able to smoke some weed. Do you think that the tourism dollar, we got all these boats, cruise ships coming in and everything else. I mean, how much do you think that, and it's nice for us as citizens, but is this going to be done by a Washington State driver's license ID only? Or
absolutely not. If you're overage and you're within the state limits,
you can smoke the weed. So how much?
Well, there's limits on where you can smoke it.
Sure. But I mean, but what do you see as the tourism dollar as far as having cafes and people coming here?
It's coming, and it's coming probably quicker than you think.
Because just this past weekend, they were down at the Athletic Club, ironically enough. With a big symposium, talking about the aspects of, like, look, grow lights, right. Magnum peat moss or whatever the hell, hydroponics, basically everything we have here, but more on a level of, you could go into Kmart and get a grow system, but kind of like they have with tomatoes, but the tomatoes wouldn't be on the outside of the box this time, I guess.
The industry is just ripe for it.
Yeah, the Washington State Liquor Control Board, or how it was proposed, the Liquor and Cannabis Control Board at the meeting at City Hall last week, drew an overcapacity crowd. They're going around all over the state having meetings, trying to come up with some of the rules. A lot of the rules are dictated in I-502, but there is a lot of flexibility for the Liquor Control Board to make up specific things like the number of licenses they're going to issue to the different levels. Like they have a grower, basically, kind of a supplier, and then a retailer outlet.
Well, I appreciated the fact that when they did this, they opened it up to people and said, look, those of you that have been in the game for quite a while, what expertise can you offer us? And the people that showed up there, I just thought it was brilliant. The guys that grew said, look, man, we know how to grow a good product. We can tell you that now, but, these are the things that you should look at. And it's a brilliant way to do it. Instead of coming up with legislation, like, put it this way, they seem to realize they're a little bit out of touch. So it's a great idea to take the people that have been in the mix for a while and say, what would be the proper way to do this? Ted?
Jason, another part about this is that, like with HempFest, and I at the time, I was just afraid the marijuana would not be legalized. And for me, when you have HempFest and all that, the faces of the people smoking weed, there's all kinds of people, but that's not the picture that gets put in the paper. The picture is the guy with, like, a gas mask on, you know what I mean, and to see the face of marijuana, and there's nothing wrong with wearing a gas mask. Apparently, you can get very, very high. but the guys in suits, you know what I mean? Guys who don't. It looks. And perception is everything, especially when you're talking about trying to get certain things past certain people. You know, who's like, look at that hippie, dirty looking, you know, and they're ruining their lives smoking weed. And now you have people up there who are professionals, who are. It's a different game, and I think it's just incredibly. I don't know. It's just a positive thing now to get everybody on board a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
I mean, it started off with these guys who are running Hempfest and sort of the grassroots level,
and they did a great job.
Yeah, but the people who ran I-502, Allison Holcomb, and a bunch of the other people, they were playing a more conservative role than you'd expect. I mean, she always wore a suit and presented herself very professionally, and it wasn't your typical. Hempfest goers, the kind of hippie stoners. It was John McKay, the former U.S. attorney. It was, Rick Steves, a well-known television and producer and travel writer. I mean, a whole laundry list of people who aren't your normal candidates.
And it seemed that, at least from the standpoint of the two states that passed this, us and Colorado, that Colorado was a little bit more ahead of the game as far as marijuana before both got legalized. In other words, it just seemed a little bit more readily available. It seemed that Colorado or Coloradians were a little bit more on board, if so to speak. It just seemed
the medical industry there had 10 years to kind of grow, and people got used to it a lot more gradually. Here, it spiked in 2 years, and that's a big change.
What do you think happens to something like Hempfest? I mean, do you think this thing? Oh, and I don't think it diminishes it by any means. I get the feeling it might become a monstrous cultural event because now you're saying, look, man, no matter where I live in this country, I can fly there legally. I can enjoy this thing. I get the feeling that's going to it's going to get a lot bigger than people.
Yeah, they might have to move it. They might have to move it,
and it might be
else.
Pink Floyd. You know what I mean, or somebody.
Right. I mean, you're going to bands.
I mean, it's already the biggest pro rally I think in the world.
Right. Think about that. You get 100,000 people to show up at this thing, and now you're saying, well, look, now it's and obviously it was tolerated, but I mean, now you're saying it's legal. I get the feeling something like Hempfest is going to be.
I think that could be your tourist destination right there.
Yeah, there you go.
The movie is Evergreen: The Road to Legalization in Washington. And Nils, one more time, go ahead and plug the website for a little.
Please, we need your help. Indiegogo.com, Evergreen Doc.
Okay.
And we've been shooting for 13 months in post-production. Sonicsgate guys are aboard. It's a heck of a movie. Please check it out, and please look at the website, evergreendocumentary.com. Help us out.
At Evergreen Doc on Twitter.
We will continue that conversation. Also talk to Adam and Jason a little bit about the Sonics, whatever else you guys are working on that you want to plug. We'll take a break and be right back.
Now, back to the men's room with Miles and Thrill, 99.9 KISW.
All right, let's talk to Jason and Adam. Let's get into the
we've established that Nils is, in fact, a douche.
Yes, absolutely. Jason and Adam, you guys...
it does suck to be a douche.
Come in here be on this terrible radio program.
Terrible polling.
Absolutely.
I question it.
So let's talk a little bit of Sonics basketball. You guys, obviously, Sonicsgate, you have to think that in a weird way, not that you're directly responsible, but it sure helped the momentum and everything else. So you guys were the first to really, everybody was upset when the Sonics left, but you guys made it a point to tell the story.
Except Greg Nichols.
Maybe everybody didn't know. Well, Greg had been to a couple games. I think he said back in the early
3 games in 10 years.
He was okay to throw it out, but let's be honest about Greg Nichols, and I don't say many positive things about him. The fix was in. There's nothing that he could have done to save any of that from a political standpoint. I'm not the biggest fan of
That's
his.
why he should have just lied.
But, he should have said...
I mean, at that point, hey, man, at least 5 games a season, something.
But David Stern, he operates the NBA in kind of a mafioso way. Same way as Roger Goodell. I'll just do whatever I want, and, you guys can all go to hell and die. And the fix was in on that. And, unlike other things, especially with the current situation with Chris Hansen, when Clay Bennett came here, I think that the cell, and I think the NBA learned a lot about this. You can't come into a town, especially after what happened with Katrina, why Clay Bennett was offered that franchise, and act like that this team is not leaving town. And I think
that's all anyone asked.
I think that left a nasty taste in people's mouth. Like, we know you're lying. You basically just traded out the entire team. Everybody, and now you're going to take Durant. God damn it. You know what I mean? We could have picked Oden. That'd have been better, right? And
it would have been much
given
better.
Portland goddamn Durant at least. Just we don't have to deal with him in Oklahoma City. But this time around, doesn't it seem like it's like, look, we are here in Sacramento. We want to buy this team from the Maloofs. We want to take them to Seattle. It's a completely different approach.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was the thing that was so hard for Seattle fans is just the amount of people that were lying to us constantly. And the fact that we now have the ability to record press conferences and edit them together in a way to show their lies. I mean, I think that was something they weren't expecting. They weren't expecting for someone to bring up the court transcripts and compile that with the footage of him lying at the news conference. And so I think that, like, we held them accountable, and I think that, I think that plays into how they're handling the situation this time in Sacramento. If Chris Hansen buys the team, which it looks like he's going to, there's going to be no illusions, no false hope that they're going to stay in Sacramento, other than if somebody rips the team away from Chris Hansen locally there. But we know, I think the fix is in just the same way the fix was in here. There's very little Kevin Johnson and the Sacramento Kings fans can do at this point, because the team is sold in a binding agreement to Chris Hansen as it stands now.
But at least you have to posture. I mean, I get why he's saying what he says, because it's like, look, he wants to get reelected. So we get it, but I don't think there's any real effort on his part, and it's understood. And it's not that with Clay Bennett, we knew why Clay Bennett was here, and I think it's one of those things. It's almost like asking your kid, like, look, who wrote your name in crayon on the wall? We know you did it. We just want you to say, God damn it, you know what, I did it, I'm sorry, whatever the case. And I think that's really what left the worst taste. You get the business of sports. We know how it goes. It's like a free agent that's been here for years going somewhere else. We get it, but it'd be different if the free agent said, I have no plans on going anywhere. Sure. And God damn it, signs in the middle of the night and rolls.
And I think that I think Oklahoma City is one of the positive examples how relocation at a medium-sized or smaller market can work for the NBA, just by taking in the Pelicans during Katrina and making sure that they sold out the Ford Center, whatever the hell they call that place.
Such an intimidating team name, the Pelicans.
Yeah, I mean, well, look out. Is there, because they eat all kinds of fish, is there any way...
Were you that scared of the Hornets?
Hornets
I'm scared of a Hornet than a Pelican.
The Wasp, absolutely. Is there a story to be told now, or are you guys too busy to do it? I mean, is there a Sonicsgate follow-up to this as far as... the idea of, okay, now what? It's kind of like
return of Squatch
with Nils. Now that we've got the the marijuana legal. All right, now what? Is there something? Is there part 2, the sequel? With maybe Billy D. Williams and Boba Fett.
Well, that would be a great one. We're going to have to write that down. But a lot of people have asked us if we're going to put on the sort of the sequel, the happy ending or whatever to Sonicsgate. And we've been recording all the press conferences. We've, kept up on all that stuff, so we'd be ready if the opportunity arose. Thing is, these things are unbelievably time-consuming and expensive to produce, so hopefully we'll be in a position in the next year or so as the story continues to unfold to tell that story. Right now, we're just kind of sitting back and enjoying the possibility of having a team back.
But if you call the Sonics happy ending, people are going to have a much different expectation of what they're seeing.
I will say this. Isn't it nice?
Right.
Isn't it nice as they go through the design process of the new arena, and they're putting all that together, and obviously that's going to take a little bit of time. But isn't it kind of bittersweet in a way that for the first couple of years, if this comes to fruition, that the Sonics will be back in Key Arena, and that we'll be able to go to Queen Anne, get a goddamn beer, throw down, do it like we used to do, go into the game about half loaded, and watch. And
half?
Well, yeah. But I mean, but isn't that a bittersweet kind of thing? I mean, isn't that very cool that, and I would say...
It's kind of like if your wife left you for another guy, and then the girl you're going to marry was married and you stole her from her husband.
In a way.
You know what I mean? Because the Sonics got stolen, but now we're kind of doing that to Sacramento.
Well, but that's what I was saying as far as
exactly
the face of it is that this is not a mute. This is what it's intended to do. And, as far as the fans in Sacramento go, they cannot stand the Maloofs. It's one of these deals where, and I really believe with the Sonics, they didn't have a choice on the sale. I think that David Stern pretty well mandated that Clay Bennett and Aubrey McClendon or whatever, they were the guys that were going to buy the team regardless of who came in. Same thing that's going on with Kevin Johnson right now. You're not going to... Those local guys, this has been determined. And if not, if they want to keep the Kings, I don't think that anyone in Seattle for 1 minute would say, look, keep your Kings if you want to do that. Why don't you just have an expansion? Why don't you have Chris Hansen give David Stern $320 million or whatever the number is, and we'll just take the Sonics back? Put them in, you know what I mean? Like, what's the difference?
Well, I think we would all prefer expansion. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
Sure.
The NBA has said time and time again they're not in a position to expand. Maybe.
And you can take them at their word. We've learned that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, the team being sold in Sacramento, it's just... Sorry.
Eat that thing.
I'm not.
Eat that thing. Eat that thing. You guys work in goddamn video and audio production. What have you not figured out? You're award-winning documentarians. Christ.
I lost my train of thought there, but the Kings fans, it was done behind kind of closed doors. We saw that they didn't have an open market that said, "Hey, local buyers." Just like here, the team was sold. All of a sudden, it was just announced. This group of Oklahoma investors bought the team. Just like here, it was just announced that Chris Hansen's buying the team from the Maloofs, and there was no chance for the local, ownership to come forth. But really, that's because I don't think there's serious owners there, and Chris Hansen has a $500 million arena that's signed off on, ready to go.
Well, money talks, and the precedent was set. I don't think anybody here wants to take another city's team, but the precedent was set. So you kind of go hey, man, if this is how business is accepted to be done, then it's going to be done that way.
I mean, how many cities were the Kings a part of before they were in Sacramento?
They have
Kansas City.
I was just going to say, Ted, in that analogy, I think we're on the fourth or fifth husband now. Now, nothing against
you do not want to go to this wedding.
Nothing against these fans of Sacramento. Obviously, that's been their home, but that's the big difference is that the Sonics were our expansion team since 1967. They were here 41 years. The Kings were in Rochester, Kansas City, Omaha.
Rochester.
So it's been somewhat of a nomadic franchise, even though Sacramento fans love them.
And I hate to be this guy, but doesn't California have enough NBA basketball? I mean, how many teams do they have down there? I mean, honest to God, is that 4 or 5? How many do they have?
It'll be 3 now, right?
4 right now. Well, hopefully. So what are the hang-ups? Does Kevin Johnson, is there anything that he can realistically do? Can Chris Hansen become the owner of the Sacramento Kings if they decide to keep them in Sacramento, or is this deal only if he can relocate the team to Seattle?
Well, the move needs to be approved by the board of governors, all the owners of the NBA, basically. So Kevin Johnson is going to be given one last chance to go before them and plead his case. If he has a bunch of owners, he's going to plead they should sell to Chris, not to Chris Hansen, but to those owners. But it's going to take them voting. These same board of governors that voted 28-2 to allow the Sonics to leave Seattle and go to Oklahoma. I think that all the owners want to see a franchise sold for upwards of $525 million, the most expensive franchise ever sold. They want to have the ability to move their own teams if they get into a similar situation or sell their team to who.
So
the
people who are voting on this have the business end of it at stake, and their business as well. If things get really crappy in their town, and they might need to do the same thing, so it's in their best interest. You're
saying,
even
TV market, man. We're a bigger market, so
the head of the relocation committee, may I remind you, is Clay Bennett, someone who knows a few things about team relocation.
And that's what
I would dare him to be like, nah.
Is the guy that we all have a bitter taste in our mouth just because he lied, not because of what he did. We understand why he did what he did. He was always going to take his team back home.
Right.
That's why they took in the Hornets when Katrina happened. That's why they sold that place out. Is he now going to be the one guy who gets Seattle the team back? Because Art Modell didn't really help Cleveland get the Browns back. He was off to Baltimore. But is he going to help? Is Clay Bennett part of that process?
I mean, I think this was orchestrated by David Stern and the NBA in this very way. They put him on the head of that committee. He is the one who's ultimately going to give his recommendation to the Board of Governors, which they very rarely, go against the recommendation of the relocation committee. And so Clay Bennett and David Stern, if a team gets back in Seattle while still under David Stern's watch, they can get a little bit of the black eye off, and I'm sure that that's gone through their head in helping to orchestrate this.
Oh, sure.
Real quick here, we've talked about everything that you've done, everything that's out there. What are you guys working on now? Nils, do you have any projects in works at all?
I'm doing a couple astronomy projects, not astronomy projects. But no,
we'll talk to the man right here.
Me and Ben, man, we're all about it.
Yeah, what are you working on specifically? You can geek out here. He'll probably know what you're talking about.
Okay, it's a documentary about a radio telescope called the VLA in New Mexico.
I know what you're talking
Jodie
about.
Foster has just signed on to narrate it, but I shouldn't be promoting that film. No, and then long term, we want to make Evergreen 2, I think, which is kind of the run of legalization.
We are just
to
high
the
as
Supreme
hell right now.
Court. Yeah.
Why don't you make it Evergreen 2? We are high as hell.
I like that.
Electric Boogaloo.
Jason, you guys?
Yep.
Adam, you guys doing it?
We actually snuck in another feature doc while no one was looking before we came on board with Evergreen. It's called K2 Siren of the Himalayas. It premiered up in Banff in November, and it's a documentary. Director Dave Olson, the local guy, went to K2 in 2009 on the 100-year anniversary of a historic Italian expedition and filmed a documentary about climbing the mountain. And we did a kind of historical documentary where it weaves in between the old footage and stills from 1909 and the current modern-day footage to kind of look at the nature of exploration and how it's changed in the last 100 years.
And is that the first time that the K2, I know, is it Jim, is it Breeshears or the guy who did a lot of stuff on Everest? Who are the camera guys that always go up there? I I can't remember.
Yeah, Ken Brashears, right?
But with K2, I guess the technology with the Abruzzi Ridge and the I guess more popular route. You're doing so much actual technical climbing. So what is it, all helmet cam stuff? Is it a lot of that?
What's really cool is Dave went up there and he actually brought 16mm film. He had HD cameras. Then he also got everybody's footage who was on the trip. Stills that people took, little diary cams, helmet cams, whatever. And we took all that footage and edited the film, combined with the historical footage, into this sort of amalgamation and telling the whole story of the season up on the mountain.
And if you don't know anything about climbing, the basic deal is this: it makes Everest look like a walk in the park.
Yeah, it's just the steepness of it, isn't it?
For every 4 people who make it to the top of K2, 1 person dies.
Right.
Either they make it to the top, they don't make it on the way down. So that is the mother of them all. So
it's because the other hikers killed them.
Are there bodies on that Abruzzi Ridge?
There's bodies up there
just like
removed, and it's definitely climbed. In 2009 and 2010, nobody summited the mountain. This is years that I think 800 plus people summited Everest. It's so remote, you have to go through Pakistan or through a very, very remote camel trek through China to even get to base camp to even start climbing. And that takes
all the reputable expedition groups that are in this town, from RMI or Alpine Ascension, they would never think to take somebody on a trip to K2.
There's very few commercial expeditions. Actually, this one that Dave went along was the first major commercial expedition.
I think the Koreans always try stuff like that. The Japanese always try to send a team up. But no, I don't know if anybody in North America would say, sure, sign up, get on a treadmill.
There's not an industry set up like there is at Everest Base Camp, where there's like a mini city or mini
Brought village
there.
Bar.
It's you literally show up. There's nothing
Welcome
there.
To Red Bull
there's no
Village.
infrastructure, and
Adam Brown, Jason Reed, along with Nils Cowan. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Would you guys like to do the shot of the day with us?
Let's do it.
Somebody out there deserves to be recognized. And the men's room knows just who it is. So to you we say, bottoms up, sailor. You're the toast of our shot of the day.
All right, drinking time it is. As usual, we head to the drink desk and Steve will throw hell to find out who we're toasting.
Yes, indeed. Today's shot is brought to you by the fine folks at Silver City Brewery, promoting their Whoop-Ass IPA. If you're a hophead like our friend Miles here, well, they present the Whoop-Ass Double IPA, without a doubt the boldest and hoppiest mother of a brew that Silver City has ever created. It should be noted that it is 8.5% alcohol, so please enjoy it responsibly. And you can find it in 22-ounce bottles around the Puget Sound, wherever fine local craft beer is sold, and on draft selection at select locations. And you can also probably find it in Miles's belly. Just know. And today we toast the fine prison officials at a prison outside of Arapiraca, Brazil. I probably said it wrong, but I don't care. Anyway, guards recently stopped an intruder from breaking into the prison. He was apprehended at the main prison gate, and the intruder had drill bits, files, a cell phone plus charger, and earphones taped to his body. So obviously all of these items can be used as a means of escape and for communicating with convicts on the outside. So the suspect has been detained. It was caught January 1st, actually, New Year's Day. But also we should point out the suspect is a cat. So as one official poignantly observed, quote, "It's tough to find out who's responsible for the action as the cat doesn't speak." Well, thank you very much. So the idea was they taped all this crap to a cat, hope the cat could just jump through the prison gates, get to whatever prisoner this was scheduled for. They can't figure it out because obviously no one's trying to claim the cat. But yeah, all this crap was taped to a cat, and they've continued to detain the cat. I don't know why. It's not going to talk anytime. But there you go. That's how they do it in Brazil, bitches. Damn. All right, let's drink.
Sounds like the perfect crime.
Oh, look at that. Adam nailed it. There we go to you, buddy. Thank you.
That's
That's
documentary humor, bitches.
I'm trying to think of some way to tie in smuggling and muling and pussycat, but I don't know how exactly.
Not legally. Yeah. I had a lot of jokes about where they placed it. It's just not. So let's drink. Yes, the perfect crime. We pour this booze and we drink this booze because we think it's yummy. Yummy. So over the tongue and down the throat to party in our tummies. Down the hola, bichola.
Miles and Thrill in Israel, 99.9 KISW, Seattle.
The Men's Room with Miles and Thrill, 99.9 KISW.
Big thanks again to Adam and Jason from Sonicsgate and Nils from Evergreen, the documentary about the legalization of marijuana here in Washington State.